Katie Hopkins, welcome back to Outsiders. How are you?
Thank you very much indeed. I'm delighted, by the way, that Rita says the word artists with her particular accent, so it sounds like arses, which I think is perfect given what the context that she just gave.
Are you surprised, Katie, that our Melbourne, of course, is our most left-wing city, I suppose. Are you surprised that they're handing out arts grants to feminists who hate women, by the way, who hate conservative women, it must be pointed out?
Yeah, of course. Not at all. I'm desperate to get to Melbourne, actually, and help kind of expose some of the gangs that you have there. And as you can imagine, Melbourne are equally thrilled and delighted to host me. And so I will be coming there one day. That's a direct threat to the gangs that you have roaming the street and to any rabid feminists that loosely identify as female.
Fantastic. Now, first of all, it's Mother's Day in Australia, so I hope your kids, you've told your kids that they've got to pamper you all tomorrow. Tell us about Professor Pantsdown, Katie. Tell us the whole story.
Unbelievable. So there's this bearded scientist. He's the typical science type. He looks like the sort of guy nobody would want to sit next to at a wedding. He's called Neil Ferguson. And he's basically the guy that was he was the one that made it such that the UK was locked down. He's called Professor Lockdown. He was the one that came up with the modelling that persuaded Boris Johnson that we all had to be shut away and put under house arrest in our homes. He said 500,000 people might die in the UK because of coronavirus. Now, what he then did, whilst he had the rest of us locked down, he got his mistress, his married lover, a woman, funnily enough, called Mrs. Stats. So for a guy who does modelling and statistics, she's called that. He had her over, and Professor Pantsdown got his pecker out on a number of occasions to help entertain Mrs. Stats, whilst the rest of us were in lockdown. So number one, massive hypocrisy as per usual. Number two, he is known for being absolutely crazy with these models, like 500,000 deaths. We're nowhere near that number. He predicted 200 million would die from the bird flu, I believe. It ended up being 242. Like, his modelling is about as accurate as my 5-year-old standing up to take a pee. So why we're listening to him at all, I don't know. And now Professor Pantsdown has got his todger out whilst the rest of us are in lockdown. So frankly, regular Brits have had enough. But I'll tell you this, coming here to studio tonight, London is a really eerie place to be. There are no people. There is nobody out and about. It is a really curious time to be in this city. I don't even recognise it.
Well, maybe Professor Pantsdown exaggerated some of the statistics to attract Miss Stats to come on over and break the lockdown as well. I guess we'll never know. Rita?
I'm interested in Katie's response to Harry Potter actress and ABC favourite, Miriam Margolyes, who said something about Boris Johnson that I've got to say took my breath away. Have a listen.
The government have handled everything so far, Miriam?
Appallingly, of course. Appallingly. It's a disgrace. It's a scandal. It's a public scandal. I mean, I had difficulty not wanting Boris Johnson to die. I wanted him to die. And then I thought, that reflects badly on me.
She's quite a piece of work. She's quite a lady. But, of course, the left fell about. They were so gleeful with this comment, this idea that she struggled not wanting Boris to die. But it's typical of that kind of London metropolitan Remainers, and very much actually coronavirus has split straight down the middle with Remain and those people who wanted to leave. So good Brexiteers like myself. Coronavirus has happened to be the same kind of thing. Those people who love the lockdown, they love Professor Pantsdown, they hate the Tory government. They're all the Remainers, and they're very much kind of inflating the coronavirus mania. Whereas us sensible and smart Brexiteers, we've seen through all of this corona nonsense. And frankly, we just want to get back to work. And it's really disappointing to see so many Brits on their knees, being compliant with the state, you know, doing what the police tell them to do, joining in, reporting on their neighbours. It's a country I'm really struggling to recognise at the moment. I want to give them all a good shake and tell them to pull themselves together and stop being so afraid. Like, for my money, it is nothing worse than the flu. It's very unfortunate. A lot of elderly people are dying. They would have probably died anyway. We just need to get a move on and get cracking. And what the heck Australia's doing, locking down when you've had like a handful of people die, I have no idea whatsoever. Australia seems to have gone full coronavirus crazy.
James.
I want to ask you about this story, which I've been hearing a lot about coming out of England. I had hoped that with this whole crisis, we might see an end to identity politics. But of course, no, they're trying to shove the coronavirus through this model now. And they're talking about the disproportionate death rates of different ethnic groups in the healthcare industry. And I've even heard suggestions that maybe only white doctors should be put on the front line so that they're the only ones who are at risk of catching it. Can you walk us through this identity politics madness, please?
Yes, well, it's a great surprise to me, of course, that coronavirus isn't Islamophobic, because, of course, everything else in the UK is Islamophobic. But it turns out it's just racist. Coronavirus is a deeply racist virus and is deliberately targeting our BAME workforce, who are so great and so gracious to work within our NHS. And actually, interestingly enough, coronavirus has been used heavily by the left to promote the immigration agenda. So whilst all of this has gone on, our little bill that was supposed to control immigration in our country has been put to one side. It's no longer being discussed in Parliament. And just like your crazy artists in Melbourne, we had a funded poem about coronavirus and BAME workers. And the poem was called "You Clap for Me Now." And the premise behind that was you racist white people in the UK, you clap for us now here saving your asses. And it basically went on to say, don't you forget this when this is over. So there's 100 different layers of menace going on around this coronavirus. But certainly the premise is, and we're all supposed to believe it, that coronavirus is a deeply racist virus and that white people should be thrown onto the front line to protect our betters and our BAME population that live amongst us.
Katie, we've only got a minute or so left, so I won't play the clip, but it's 41 years since Margaret Thatcher walked into Downing Street. Tell us your thoughts.
Oh, I love her so much. I mean, what a woman. I just think she's fabulous, a woman of conviction. You know, unlike Boris Johnson, he gets a bit of man flu, call it coronavirus if you will, and he takes months off. What do we have with Thatcher? She gets blown up overnight by the IRA and she's still at conference the next day in a pantsuit with high hair and a handbag giving her speech. Just fabulous. She pointed out we're not all equal. Some people are not worth the effort. You know, a good 16% of my country have an IQ less than 85. That's the sort of IQ where you have to be introduced to yourself in a mirror or have to be taught how to use Velcro. So hurrah for Margaret Thatcher. We're not all equal. Some people aren't worth the effort. And I think Melbourne demonstrates that point particularly well.
Thank you, Katie Hopkins. Enjoy Aussie Mother's Day and thanks so much for chatting to us and great to see you. You've got the empty streets of London to look forward to out there. I think there's probably a song about there somewhere. Thanks so much, Katie Hopkins.
See you later.